establish the following time limits for responses. Opening statement will be 1 minute. Response to questions will be 1.5 minutes. And closing statement will be 1 minute. To help our candidates stay within that time limit, our timers will hold up a green card when candidates have 30 seconds remaining in their time, and a red card when their time is up. However, when you see the red card, you may finish your sentence. I've been given permission to start the applause if a speaker goes over their time. Now, I would like to welcome our candidates for the Santa Clara County Board of Trustees, Gino Borgioli and Claudia Rossi. Our panelists for session 1 will be Leah and Zoe Slavers. You will have 1 minute to make an opening statement. Mr. Borgioli, would you please begin? After you sit down.
Thank you for, is this on?
Yes.
It is on?
Yeah.
Thank you, Sobrano High School and staff and students for setting all this up. Just like early this year with the Parkland shooting, you guys did a great job in setting this up. I am Gino Borgioli. I'm running for the County Board of Education. I have worked in high tech for well over 30 years to bring real-world experience to the county board. I was a technology officer for one of the Valley's largest software companies that helped shape Silicon Valley to what it is today. I was trusted to make important technology decisions, and I can be trusted with decisions that will help grow the future leaders in our school. As a new trustee 4 years ago, I knew I needed school governance training in order to be an effective and knowledgeable board member. I am the only candidate in the county race who has earned a master's in governance through the California School Boards Association Premier Program. I was the one who raised alarms about the dangers of building a new school on toxic soil in Morgan Hill on Pete Road, and I even went to Sacramento and presented these dangers to the independent review panel for DTSC, Department of Toxic Substance Control. I delivered on every single one of my promises to the voters 4 years ago, one of which was to bring 21st century learning tools into the classroom and engage our students. And today, all grades 2 through 12 have Chromebooks as part of their tools for learning. Approved me.
Ms. Rossi, you now have 1 minute.
Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. I was here a few days ago passing out achievement awards for I think practically most of Sobrano students. I'm proud to be here again. As Superintendent Vitondo mentioned, the Santa Clara County Office of Education is actually a safety net provider for students that have special needs students, foster youth, incarcerated youth, students who have not been able to earn their high school diploma. And these students have and must be given every opportunity to achieve. I stand before you as your elected trustee to serve on the Santa Clara County Office of Education Board. I am happy that my challenger mentioned bringing technology to the classroom. We actually, when I was on the board, along with my colleagues, knocked on doors and phone banned. And actually, the thanks goes to all of you who voted to bring technology to the classroom. And so, again, I stand before you, asking for your vote, and I thank you for this opportunity to discuss the issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Our panelists will now ask you some questions.
Can only have one on.
Ms. Rossi, what have you accomplished and what else do you hope to achieve if you are re-elected as a trustee for the Santa Clara County Board of Education?
Thank you for that question. I am very proud of leading the creation of a program that gives youth that has not graduated, that has not earned a high school diploma, with an opportunity to earn that diploma. We have sites throughout San Jose and in Gilroy where a youth who doesn't have a high school diploma can come in and on their own time not only earn that high school diploma, but also receive wraparound services so that he or she can connect to a community college or an apprenticeship program. I think it's really important to acknowledge the youth that is not able for many reasons to achieve that. I'm very proud that I led the way to give youth a second chance. We're also expanding services to foster youth. And another thing I'm very proud of is the increased investment for early childhood education, because I think that when we start investing in our children as young as possible, they're better able to achieve once they start school. I'm very proud of that, but most of all, to be able to work well with my colleagues on the board, to be respectful, to be collaborative, to be highly ethical. I'm proud that my daughter and my son are proud of the person that I am, that I can work well with others seeking problem-solving strategies. I'm proud of being an ethical, committed social servant for all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Borgioli, what did you accomplish while being a trustee for the Morgan Hill School District? And what do you hope to accomplish if elected to the Santa Clara County Board of Education?
I think, is this on? No. Okay, there it goes. I came on the board at, I think, an ideal time. We were sitting on the Measure G bond money that was just sitting there doing nothing in 2014. And so I had the opportunity to shape what we're going to do with Measure G bond money. And because of my, I think my 30 years in high tech, and especially my training in governance, I was able to ask the right questions and frame what we're going to do with the Measure G bond money very specifically. So today, all 13 schools have been upgraded, and the last of which is Britain Middle School. It's a $49 million project. It took all of the trustees working together, but also asking the right questions. And back in March of this year, I also, because of my Master's in Governance training, I identified a deficit spending in our budget, and because of that, we developed a dialogue or conversation on how to resolve that, so we're in a better financial position today. Earlier this year, I worked with some seniors on challenges that they had relative to being graded for homework, and I worked with the staff, and that issue was resolved, and I'm really proud that I was able to work with these seniors and get these grades to a level where they really liked getting credit for the homework, which was a big problem for them. So I also voted for, and this is one of the things I'm really proud of, the NGSS system. Thank you.
Mr. Borgioli, what criteria do you consider most important when evaluating a charter school application within the county?
When evaluating a charter school, for me, it's about their financial stability. And I look at their, how long have they been listed as a charter, what did they bring to the table, student achievement, scores, And I think most important that they're not a private organization or what I call a for-profit organization. So I'm looking at, for example, the existing charters, one of which is the Charter School of Morgan Hill and Voices. These schools really provide a higher level of service to students that normally wouldn't do very well in a traditional school. So I visited, for example, the Voices schools and saw the dual immersion program that they had there, much like San Joaquin Gwynn. And they're doing some great things with these kids that most of them were from the traditional district schools, but they couldn't do well. So these charter schools are offering a different level of independent study service to the kids. And in fact, the Charter School of Morgan Hill is one of the highest performing schools in the whole district. So I look at student achievement as the #1 area.
Thank you. Ms. Rossi, could you answer the same question?
Yes, thank you. I want to start very briefly. The claim that the Measure P funds were not being used against the wonderful work of the Citizens Oversight Committee. And I want to make sure that I emphasize that the process of bringing about the upgrades needed was a thoughtful process that involved citizen oversight, that involved staff, that involved every person at every school site to determine how these resources would be spent wisely and in technology that would be relevant. So we want to make sure that describing our accomplishments, that we don't negate the accomplishments and work of others. And that's why I go back to the importance of integrity and representing our record with integrity. And I would invite any of you to please look at our record, hold us accountable. As far as charter schools, the charter school law wanted to bring about innovation. And so in looking at a program, we have to ask ourselves, is this bringing something new to the table? Does the budget presented align with the goals in the educational program? And the County Board of Education is actually set to be the appellate body. And so I have to tell you that, yes, there are charter schools that do perform very well. We have a lot of examples of that, but we also have, quite frankly, examples of charter schools that make promises that are not kept. And so it doesn't benefit the charter school community when all charters are allowed to come in without strict scrutiny. And so I'm very proud that, and I'll tie that into the work that I'm proud of as well, which is to make sure that the schools that come in are truly offering, not only through their educational program and their budget, but they're also attracting teachers that are able to provide those programs to students. So I'm proud of the work that I've done in making sure that the students that are attracted and the ones that are attracted to those schools are actually served. But again, I go back to having integrity, and again, it's really people have to acknowledge the work of the Citizens Oversight Committee in making sure that the bottom line is spent as possible. Thank you.
Ms. Rock, do you support the construction of a new Catholic high school in Morgan Hill? How do you think it will impact our high schools?
Thank you for that question. This is an issue that has been discussed in our community. I actually had, in the interest of full disclosure, I attended a Catholic school for half of my education. I do believe in providing families choices. I do know from personal experience that there are families who travel outside of Morgan Hill to send their children to receive that religious education. So I definitely am open to offering our community that choice, because a lot of it has to do with offering youth, passing along your faith to your children. So I'm in favor of that, but I also think that we have to be very thoughtful about considering facilities, where it will be placed, I'm in general support of choice for families, but I also think we have to look at where it would go so that it would not crowd specific neighborhoods. We also have to look at the safe routes to school. Are we placing a school where the facilities are already saturated by other schools? But it does require a very thoughtful discussion between families, community, and city council and planning commission. But I'm generally in support of more choice for families. Thank you.
Mr. Borgioli, could you answer the same question?
Thank you. First of all, I'm 100% for any parent wanting to send their student to any school that they feel their student will get the best education. And so if our schools, and I do believe our schools are performing well, I don't think they're performing great though. For example, in the 11th grade in math at Sobrato, 47% of the students are meeting standards. That's just not acceptable. I think if our schools, and we are focusing now, especially with the single plan for student achievement that each of the schools have, we are really finally laser focusing on student achievement and bringing up these scores. But the reasons why parents want to send their children to different schools, like charter schools and the proposed new Catholic school, is they want a higher education for their student. So what we have to do in the public schools is step up our game and focus in on all these areas, that one of which I just cited, and I actually cited these areas in my whole 4 years on the school board. And again, I'm happy to say that finally, with the single plan for student achievement, we are focusing in on these scores to do better. But I'm 100% for choice. I'm 100% for any parent that's wanting a better education for their student, and whether it's a Catholic school or Voices, the parents know what's best for their student. So I'm definitely for the Catholic school, and I don't believe, because I also went to Catholic school, I don't believe
Mr. Borgioli, what were some of the issues that came up while you were a trustee for the Morgan Hill School Board, and how did you go about working together to come to an agreement?
Well, we had many issues on the board, and I think a robust discussion, an honest discussion on the board with all 7 trustees is absolutely crucial. And I think the ability to, and I've asked this on the board several times, the ability to ask another board member, what do you mean by what you just said? Help me understand what you just said so maybe I can change my opinion. So I continually strive to collaborate and work with my fellow board members and understand where they're coming from. But one of the really contentious issues was the building of the school on toxic soil that we really worked hard and collaborated and are still trying to figure out what we need to do in that particular area. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rossi, During your current position as the Santa Clara County Board of Education trustee, you have been in many different situations where you worked together with fellow trustees. Tell us about a situation that was challenging and how did you help it get resolved?
Thank you for that question. I have been very proud of the relationship that we have cultivated on the Santa Clara County Board of Education in, for example, evaluating of one employee, the superintendent. I think the rule for me is that I never question that my colleagues have the same goal that I have, which is to serve students. No matter how heated our arguments are on the board, we always end with, "This was a great meeting. Thank you." It's been a pleasure and an honor to work with people that are collaborative. I do want to take this time to address again, this is an opportunity for us to be accountable to all of you. For the claim to be made by Mr. Borgioli that he was collaborative, he actually engaged in emails that were very vulgar and degrading to a female colleague that resigned due in large part to that kind of behavior. He led a recall campaign against a colleague who, by all accounts, is a stellar servant in our community. We can't be held accountable if we don't admit to our misdeeds. And I have to say, and invite all of you, look at the record, read the newspaper accounts, read the tweets, because it's rather frustrating, and I would welcome all of us to challenge and hold all of us accountable. These are questions that perhaps you will not get an answer to here, but look at the newspaper accounts, because there are times where politicians do not give you a full answer, so I invite you to read the tweets and Google. Please Google. Thank you.
Ms. Rossi, how did the students of Morgan Hill Schools benefit by having you on the Santa Clara County Board of Education for the past 4 years?
Thank you for that question. There was a very special partnership with the County Office of Education and Sobrado High School right here, which gave more support for students to increase participation in AP courses. And I'm sure you know that Sobrado was recognized nationally for increasing the number of underserved students that are actually taking AP courses. Did you know that? Yes. And that's a collaboration that happened due in large part to the partnership with the County Office of Education. The County Office of Education also provides training for educators to engage in restorative justice practices, which have resulted in decreased expulsions at the district here. And the teachers and the educators must be commended for that. But those are partnerships that happened. And again, I'm not taking credit. I'm proud that I serve on a board where the professionals who provide that support to teachers. So in answer to your question, increase AP courses and improving climate, but we still have a long way to go, as you well know. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Mr. Borgioli, how will the students of Morgan Hill benefit if you are elected to the Santa Clara County Board of Education?
Thank you for that question, but I'm not going to let Ms. Rossi get away again with a bunch of absolute lies. The emails that she's referring to, I was CC'd on emails. I never sent those emails, and you can look at it, it's in public record. So I'm not going to let her get away with saying things like that. And I did not lead a recall campaign. That would be against board policy, and I would never do that. There was a group of parents who led that recall, not me. So again, Ms. Rossi is sadly mistaken and very unethically attacked me in this particular area. Now, what was, and I apologize, what was your question again?
How will the students of Morgan Hill benefit if you are elected to the Santa Clara County Board of Education?
Well, the County Board of Education is all about services. Services provided to different students, students of, for example, at-risk students, students with IEPs, students that have other types of challenges, youth, foster youth. So you need a person at the board, at the county board, to really look at all these services and bring them to the local districts. For example, before I started to run for county, I didn't know how many services that were offered at the county level.
Now it's time for the questions from the audience. This is for both of you. We'll start with Mr. Borgioli and then on to Ms. Rossi. What do you think about gun control at school?
I'm not sure what you mean by gun control, because guns are just not allowed at schools.
I think it means what will you do if you were elected to help students stay safe at school?
Well, one of the main things I would do or suggest is a single point of entry. Right now, many of our campuses are open, and people can walk on campus in many different directions. A good example of a single point of entry is San Martin Gwynn. The only way to get into that school is through the main admin building. I think we have to find some areas, especially at Clara, for example, how to secure this school. I think what we need to do is the school resource officers. We really need at least 2, if not more, school resource officers, and make it known that these school resource officers are at these schools. But for me, I think it's the single point of entry that we really have to focus in on. Otherwise, we're just not going to solve people walking in onto the campus and unfortunately harming our students. So that's the first thing I would like to figure out how to tackle. We did extensive security research at the Parkland, after the Parkland shooting, and we came up with some suggestions. I just don't think that's enough. We really have to look at some of the other districts around the country who really enforce single point of entry to protect our students at the schools. Thank you.
In the Virginia Tech shooting that happened in 2008, the shooter entered through a single entrance and had the door locked. How do you think a single entrance would effectively help the students from not being shot?
Well, the single entry point I'm talking about is when, for example, San Martin Gwynn, the only way to get through is to slide your driver's license through and get signed in and get a badge. That's what I'm talking about. Unless you have that very tight security right up front, a single point of entry, without that feature is not a single point of entry.
Thank you. Ms. Rossi, yours.
Thank you. I would look at this problem a little differently. Yes, we have to look at our physical infrastructure, but I think we have to talk about mental health services. Because if you explore the underlying cause of these tragedies, it usually involves someone who has mental health issues that were identified by many people around them. I think we need to advocate for more counselors to help students and youth that are manifesting warning signs. And when we revisit all of these tragedies, we could usually find our way to friends and people who were not surprised that these young people engaged in these horrific acts. And we could probably point to many opportunities where along the way the needs of that youth could have been addressed through counseling, extensive services. We can definitely look at physical infrastructure, but I would like to have us look at the human beings that are committing these acts, how to better address. Because there's no way that physically, through infrastructure, we could guard against the act of someone who is hurting or who might have violent tendencies. I think it goes back to looking at the human being and looking at the services that we could provide as well. And of course, the physical aspects. Do we have metal detectors? Do we have single entry? In the heart of the problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Borgioli, do you think that negative press affects how voters vote?
Absolutely. And I think negative press that is incorrect and unfair is even worse. And right now in our society, unfortunately, there's a lot of things out there that are not true. And I think that's really sad that we're going in a direction where we're depending upon the press for information that is not verified and false, and in many ways they don't give the target of the press the opportunity to respond. So absolutely, I think negative press is harmful, and I think what we really have to do is change our attitude, because what we really need to do is support one another. We need to look at one another in a much different way and help one another and not tear down one another. So I think that's the road that we really need to take.
In response to the Me Too movement and discussion around sexual violence, how do you hold yourself accountable? Also, what steps will you make moving forwards to further this?
Okay, thank you so much. We actually, in focusing on what is going on nationally, we have an opportunity to look at what has happened in our community. There was an amazing board member that served honorably. And this is a young woman that stepped down from our board because she feared for her safety. She was receiving harassing emails in the middle of the night, and she resigned out of fear for her safety. What followed was a request from her to have a legal representation from the district to help her get a restraining order from this aggressor. And there was a vote passed by Mr. Borgioli, David Gerard, and Ray Padillo to deny her that legal representation. She was in fear for her safety, and Donna Rico, the only woman left on that board, shared words of disappointment and despair. And I invite you, in tying this into the press, to come from a part of the world where the press is persecuted. Journalists are killed for reporting the truth. Governments manipulate data. And so I have the highest respect for journalism. And while there may be times where a journalist or an article might get certain facts wrong, I think a free press is the key to our democracy being accountable to all of you. So I would not join in adding my voice to denigrate the press in any way. How else can all of you find out what we do? So,
yes, but again, I'm not going to let my colleague get away with indicating that I voted for no representation. There's a board policy, a legal document that all board members have to abide by. If you're not on the board, you cannot request legal, any legal from the district. So that's why I voted against that, is because she wasn't on the board at that time. She was not entitled to legal representation. It was very simple. It's in the board bylaws. So either you abide by law or you don't abide by law. As far as the Me Too movement, really that stems from the many abuses that we see out there. And I think people are just tired, and they're saying enough is enough, and they're trying to make their voices heard. And I don't think maybe everything is true relative to that, but it's a movement that people are making their voices heard, and I think we need to listen. And so I think we just have to be careful about the aspects of that. But I'm for that movement. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your responses. You now have 1 minute to make your closing remarks. Ms. Rossi, we will begin with you.
Thank you. Thank you again for this opportunity to have this discussion. I ask for your vote once again. I am very proud of the work that I have championed the County Office of Education, addressing needs of foster youth, incarcerated youth, opportunity youth. But I think more importantly, my hope for you today, as you heard different accounts, is to do your research. Hold us accountable, because the work at the County Office of Education is much too important to have doubts about the veracity of any of us. So if anything here sounded contradictory, I invite you to please do research to make sure that the people you would like to serve on all the boards are people who embody your values and your interest to serve children. Thank you.
Mr. Borgioli, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. So when comparing candidates, I think it's critical to choose a candidate with positive accomplishments and the ability to compromise, not to bias school boards. My motto 4 years ago and today is kids first and keep politics out of the school, period. I'm one, and parents know this, I listen to the community and I listen to everything that they bring to the board. When the Pete Road thing came about on toxic soil, it was like over 100 parents at the board meetings. I think my 30 years of experience in high tech helped me to analyze that data and bring that forward. Parents tell me that their kids are not being challenged, while other kids continue to fall further behind. We really need to close that achievement gap. Now here's the real key. Shutting down the alternative school in the South County directly affects at-risk students, especially in the Hispanic community, including foster youth and IEP. Shutting down the alternative schools are for kids who are suspended. I would have demanded a different alternative, and my colleague actually is responsible for shutting down these alternative schools, leaving the district and the students.
Thank you again both for participating. Can we have another